this time we're going to have Sister Tina come.
Joe's going to pull up a slideshow, and you can be seated. We'll take just a minute. Leanne's going to do, it's Father's Day, and there will be banana bread and some zucchini bread back there. But Joe is going to try to make this slideshow up. There we go. So how many of you have been here for any length of time, like any time over 4 or 5 years maybe? Times has this church ever asked for money? Never. We don't even take up an offering regular, right? We just put it up there. This is not, and he's not comfortable with this, but so the church has a loan that we got when we bought this building, and it's really hard to get commercial lending, especially for a church. They want, this is such a weird language to me, they want 300 giving units. I was like, you mean people? Families? I don't know what they mean, but it was really hard. But there was a bank in town who gave us a loan, and but it was a 3-year term, and the 3 years is up in March, and so we're trying to get ahead of that, Joe. So basically, I'll kind of tell you what the basics, and then Joe can switch slides. But so this year is our 13th year of our church, and we want to start the 14th year with a lot less debt. So when we refinance in March, the goal is to refinance to a lot lower of a payment. It has been a burden making the payment every month. There's a lot we want to do around here. How many of you want new flooring out there? The walls to be done. There's a lot we want, but we've also had to be making a really large payment every month. So the goal is, we have envelopes out there. I'll explain it and then I'll go to the next page. But we have envelopes out there, and the envelopes start at $14 and then $28. So they go up by $14 all the way up. I think the highest one is $2,300. And I worked with Tanya on the numbers, because what we didn't want is a lot of really high numbers and people not be able to give. So there's multiples of the 14, multiples of the 28. So Joe, if you'll switch to the next slide. The current loan is $590,000. It was $623 when we started. So we've paid down, but over 3 years, we really haven't paid that much down, because it's high interest, short term. We know that that's a lot to raise. We couldn't come and ask for 590 even, but if we could raise 369, we come up with that number because of the $14 increments. It would make a huge difference when we refinance. Then we would refinance a loan of $240,000, and that's up for this, the property across the street, and the parsonage. 590 is not that big of a loan, we recognize, but because it's commercial and they only do short-term loans. Okay, so that's the goal, is we're working toward a debt-free future, but we don't expect, that's a big burden to put on the church. And if we don't get the whole $369,000, Nate says, oh, we're not probably going to get very much at all, but anything will be a help. So the goal is $369,000, which would give us a huge chunk down, and then the loan payment would be very manageable. Okay, next slide. If every person, and that includes kids, everybody, I know a lot are out today, but for the size of our church, if every person took 3 envelopes, they would all be taken and we would raise it. But I know some of the persons are small and don't have their own money. I get that. So we have envelopes out there. They're on the baptismal right now. The green envelopes are $500 or less, and they're in order, so you're not going to just like randomly take one and go, oh, I can't do that much. Red envelopes are $500 to $1,500, and then the blue are $1,500 up to $2,830. So that's the highest amount of the envelopes. And there's multiples of the green. I think there's 4 of each of the green ones. So as those are taken, we'll put more out. I think there are 2 or 3 of the blue ones, or the red ones, and then the blue ones, almost all of them only have 1. There were a couple of them that had 2, and we did that to try to, like I said, make it easier on everybody. Okay, next slide. I'm not good at this either. So I just wanted to give a little bit of context, because not everyone has been here from the beginning. Raise your hand if you were here from that building right there. That is where this church started, and people came to it. That's been almost 14 years ago. That was on 796 Del Paso Boulevard. That was the first building we bought, and a lot of lives were changed there. Anybody can witness to that? I have a little, if you go to the next slide, you can see just some of the pictures. I know there's more, but that's the inside of that building and some of the people who were there. And we'll put this online if you want to see it, but Nate was not all the way gray then. center. Some of the kids who are here today leading songs were in diapers at that place. Um, but God has been good. So it began, you see Anthony in the top with his hands raised. Do you see that? A long time ago, a lot of thank you. Thomas, there's, you see, I know it's kind of blurry. There's Brother Johnny. Anyway, the next slides aren't as blurry, but these ones for whatever reason. But so that's where we started almost 14 years ago. And then to go to the next one. And this was, it's hard to see too, but that was the very last service we had there. We sold that building and we bought our next one, which was over here. I'll show that in a minute. And everybody left that night, walked out the door, and Nate was still inside. And I was going to stay, and I thought, I think he just needs to be in here by himself. And I went out to the car. You can see the headlights shining on the building. And he walked out. I mean, I don't know how long he was in there. And he walked out, and I snapped a picture. And I think he took the little higher ground sign down, came to the car. So that was our first building. And then the next one you'll see, if he goes forward, is very familiar to most of us if we're from Reeland. It's the old library. That was our second stop on the road. And we bought that building it's been 3 years ago, and I don't remember the exact month, but I remember we walked in that building, and Nate was like, we're not going to fit in there. It's not, but it was a stopping place. It wasn't going to be our forever home. And I won't say a lot about it, but when we walked into that building, Nate's never made a decision, just jumped into it. How many of you were here and you walked that building with us and said, yeah, it's going to be a good fit? Raise your hand if you were there. You walked it. Your family picked out your seats right before we even bought it. And I remember sitting in there, and everybody's like, this is going to be good. This is going to be a good place. And I remember my husband saying, this is going to cost a lot. And he wasn't talking about money, but relationships, because there were his family was not happy about our church being in Rio Linda. I won't go into that a lot, but it cost him a lot. And we stopped there for a season. We weren't in that place forever. If you go to the next slide, you'll see what it looked like on the inside. Those are just a few pictures. There are so many. But these were little kids who are now grown up, and that was just the second stop on our journey. You can see Gary is still wearing the same overalls. I think they're a little more faded now. That was him and Bonnie Marshall and Roberta, I think, there. But so that was our second stop. We were there for 3 years. We didn't know how long we were going to be there. And then when this building came available, Joe can go to that slide. This is where we're supposed to be. How many of you walked this building with us? Nate said, hey, there's this building going to be available. And Jacob's mom was on the board when it was a Methodist church. He knows all the good hiding spots growing up in this building. And I remember years ago when he said, man, if we could ever get that old Methodist church, that would be amazing, right? To raise his children in the church he grew up in. And now here we are. And if you go to the next slide, you can see a little bit of what it looked like when we first bought it. You probably can't see really well the pews. It was blue carpet and wooden pews, and that's what it looked like when we walked the building. And we've already done a lot of work on it, and we want to do more. But that's gonna I want to do a lot of work now. And my husband said, doesn't make a lot of sense to do work on the building until we have it paid down or paid off, right? That would be ideal. It makes sense. So that's where we are now. And then the next slide is basically. I just want to say that it is a fundraiser, which we've never done before. It is an ask for money over and above what you usually give. It is an ask for that, but it's more than that. What we're trying to do is, like my husband, I don't know, we're almost 50. I know we don't look it, but almost 50. He's not going to pastor this church forever, and the goal is that whoever comes afterward doesn't have to carry the load of the financial strain, and it would be beautiful to have this church set up to be able to support a pastor. And it's easy for us to ask. It's not easy. It's easier for us to ask for money because we don't take any money from the church. Nate has never taken a salary. Our landscape and cleaning people get more money from the church than he has ever gotten. Never taken a dime. But that's not sustainable. Long term, this church needs to be able to support a pastor, and it would be great to be be able to support a pastor with the building paid down. We don't want to saddle the next generation with a lot of debt. So that's the end of that's all I have. We're gonna, there are envelopes out there. You don't have to take them now, but if you do take them, the money's not, we are basically, the Sunday after Labor Day is our church anniversary every year. And so we will hopefully have all of the offering in by then. However much comes in, don't feel obligated, but however much comes in, that way we can put